Welcome. My name is Donae, and I'm an ADHD executive functioning coach. I'm also an occupational therapist. And whether you're listening on ADHD Crash Course, my podcast, or tuning in to my new YouTube channel, I'm doing the same thing. I'm offering free coaching tools for people who struggle with executive functioning skills so life can be easier. Now, maybe you have ADHD, you suspect you have ADHD, or you just know that this aspect of adulting is hard for you. Either way, hopefully you should find some tools that'll work for you. Now, today I am looking at a resource that I made for my clients, and this is my dump list planner. Now, you may have been told to use a dump list. People say use a dump list, get everything out of your head, put it in one space. But what people often run into after that is, how do I actually use that list of maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, months of things to do, and actually use that to cut down on overwhelm, to get things done, to be able to count on yourself? Today, we're going to talk about doing that, how you do that. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, there's a link for you to download this, and YouTube, in the notes section, there'll be a link for you to be able to follow along and download this for yourself. This is a fillable PDF. You can make it your own, save it under your name, and be able to edit it yourself. So the first step in this process is to get everything bouncing around in your brain dumped out onto this list that I have over here to the left. Right, here's a list that we're using. Everything. You don't need to prioritize it. You don't need to make sense of it. You're just dumping out things that are taking up space, that are not paying rent in your head, right? Your brain is best used for thinking and creating. It's not really a great storage place for anyone, but especially for those of us with ADHD. So you want that out on paper in a file somewhere where you're not counting on yourself to remember it. And then that overwhelm can actually come down just from doing that alone. But we're going to do more. So I've done an example here. This is definitely not my whole list, but I just grabbed some things that were happening and put this on the dump list so I could use this as an example on how to break these things down, how to actually go from this thought purge to applying it to everyday life. So the first thing you're going to do with your dump list is you're going to look at this list and say, okay, what has to happen this week? Because remember, we're planning for the week with this resource, not just the day, and not beyond the week. We're looking at just this spot in front of us, this week in front of us. So what needs to happen this week? We know these things, right? There's some negative outcome we don't want. There's a late fee. Our kid's going to miss being able to be on a team that they want to be on. There's a work deadline. We know those. So if you know those, you're going to go ahead and directly put those really important things up here in the this week category. Now, maybe they have a specific time, like right here, my example with my son's checkup, right? That's on Monday. So I don't even need to put it in the week. I'm going to put that directly on the day, because I know it has to be Monday. If I don't show up that day, I've missed the appointment. But there are other things, like let's say looking at taxes is a good example, right? Taxes is a stressful example. For a lot of people, that shuts them down when they see that on their dump list. Why? Because that is a many-step process. You don't just do your taxes for most of us in one day. And so the big rule with taking something from your dump list and putting it onto the week, if you're not completing it this week, the whole thing, like taxes, won't go here. What I will do for something big like this, like taxes, I'm going to limit it in some way, break out a step or a couple of steps I'm going to do, or I'm going to limit it by time. So maybe I'm going to put on my list this week 30 minutes, or maybe steps, maybe download my January through March expenses. So taxes will stay on my dump list. It's not completed. I need to remember this and go back to it, but I'm chipping away at it without feeling super overwhelmed. And that's the goal, that I want to be able to start to make progress on this and still remember it, still have it on my dump list. Now let's look at something like my daughter's driving lessons. This is one of those really tricky things, especially when we're in a chaotic place or we're really overwhelmed. This doesn't really have a concrete deadline. It's something that she needs to get done, wants to get done, but it's not like this has to happen by a certain date. And so I'm going to make a choice here. I'm going to look at my whole week and what's going on and decide, am I making any steps on this, or is this staying on the list? It's not going on the week. If I don't think I'm going to get time to do it, if I honestly and realistically look at my week and there's not space to do that, I am not going to put it on this list. Our eventual step here, once we've filled this week with what we're going to do in the week, is we're going to fold this, if you've printed it out, and fold that dump list behind it and not look at the dump list again until I'm planning for the week again. When I'm planning for next week, I'm going to look at that dump list. Number one, I'm dumping everything out. Number two, I'm looking only at a week. And then number three, I'm taking what is in this week and plugging it into a day. That is the whole system of this. The biggest part to remember is do not look at this list once you've planned for the week. Don't go back to it. Now, if for some reason you hit the end of the week, you're like, wow, I just have so much time. No, I need to get some stuff done. I've done everything in this week that I plan to do. Fine, then go back to the list and pull some things out of that list. But the big point that I want to make is when you create this huge list of, let's say, 3 months worth of work to do, and you look at that list and try to operate every day out of that list, you are using a lot of executive functioning skills every time you do that. You're looking at that list and you're having to sequence and prioritize. You're having to filter out visual information you don't need yet. You don't want to make yourself do that every day. It's very overwhelming. And you never really get that sense of like, I did it, I accomplished stuff, because you have so much you're looking at that you always feel like you've come up short. These dump lists are just meant for our memory. They're meant for to be like our thought downloads, our external hard drive. That's their purpose. They're really not what you want to operate out of. You want to get in a habit of taking things from that list and putting it into a smaller space. I'm looking at the week, I'm looking at the day. And that will help you with the overwhelm. So let's look at some more of the things that I listed just as examples. Get passports for the kids. That's another one, like the taxes. There's a lot of steps to this. There's checking their schedules and seeing what possible days we're all free. There's calling and making the appointment. There's filling out the forms. There's getting their photos. Think about multi-step things that we're having to not only break out the steps, we're having to figure out the order. The sequence. That's another executive functioning skill, is sequencing. So when you look at something like get passports done and you've broken out all these steps, a lot of times we struggle with which step matters first. What do I do first? So I just listed a lot of the steps. I already know this week that my schedule's a little too busy to go and complete this task. But if I want to make some progress on it, I can just decide that I'm going to get the passport photos. Once I've done that, I'm going to want to plug it in on a day. I already know. Now, for me, I might plug in my whole schedule. I haven't done that yet, like concrete appointments. You have to decide what works for you and what makes sense for you. Let's just say I know my week is super hairy until Friday. So if I already know the space that this task goes to, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in so I don't have to keep looking at the this week category. Once again, trying to sequence, trying to filter out. I want to go ahead and give it a day. It's okay if it doesn't happen on that day. You have that kind of flexibility. Let's say that passport photos didn't happen, right? It wasn't really a hard deadline. Well, I've got a choice here, right? I might just decide to delete it altogether, right? I don't have time to deal with this right now. There's no pressing deadline. That's just drop down in priority, not gonna mess with it. It has stayed on my dump list. Get passports for kids. So I don't have to worry about forgetting it. I'm gonna go back to that because I'm always using this dump list to plan my weeks. Maybe the next week I have time for it, right? I can just move it right here for the next week. I'm breaking things down. I'm not as overwhelmed. I'm keeping track of them. Let's look at something else here. Oh, Ray's my dog. Refill Ray's heartworm and flea medication. That is time specific, but it's not right now. So it would help me if this is on my list to take a look and see, do we have any of these left? Is she totally out? If she's totally out, what's the process for getting it? Do I have to contact my vet first? Can I just pick it up? How long do they normally take to get back to me? Thinking about this, okay, if she was totally out, maybe I need like a week to be able to get these. And so, okay, I go take a peek. She's totally out. If I know that she is totally out of her medication, then I've got a little bit more firm of a deadline. Let's say it's mid-month. It's the 15th. She takes her medication the first of the month. I need to think through this sequence of how I get her medication. For her, I order it through a company and they check with my vet. So that whole turnaround might take a week. So she needs this medication in 2 weeks. It's going to take 1 week. So I now know that this has to happen this week. And so what I will do is take this, move it here, and I need to put, for me, I might just remind myself this week. I use exclamation points, so I pay attention to things. That works for me. But now I know I'm not going to let this thing go back to the dump list. It's not going to go back to the dump list. I create a little note for myself. Now, I don't know when that's going to fit in the week because that's a little task that I might need to do in 10 minutes. So I'm not going to really assign that necessarily to a day in the week. You may decide to. It's up to you. All right. How about this one? These are what we hate returns. Returns are just a very annoying errand. These might have a due date, they might not. There's some things on here where you have the whole year. These Amazon returns, I need to get this in with a month. So once again, another step, but if I don't want the consequence, I need to kind of check and see what these returns, they're not all one and the same. Some of these things I have a whole year for. Some of these things I might need to get done in 3 days. So I'm going to look to see if the date matters. If it is, I'll put it there. So when I'm planning, I know that information. Sometimes my brain will categorize returns like they're all the same thing, but they don't all have the same consequence or the same urgency. So knowing when I need to or I'm planning to get these things done helps create a little bit of urgency. Returns never feel super urgent, and that's part of why they're kind of hard to get done is they're just these little nebulous out there things that are like nagging jobs to do. That's how you might deal with a task like that doesn't really have a date, but maybe there is some more to know about when to get this in, when to complete this. I wanted to take a look at this one, right? This last thing on the stump list that I wrote here. Resubmit an insurance claim. This resubmit my daughter's doctor's visit to the insurance. The situation is we submitted already. For some reason, they didn't pay us. We don't know why. There's some code that's a problem. These things can be very frustrating. When you're dealing with emotional regulation, you might find yourself already just done before you even begun. They're overwhelming. The likelihood of this not being done with 1 or 2 rounds is high. It's frustrating. And I also have to track this mentally. I can't just get this done. I can do my step and I have to wait on it. I call this a boomerang task. I've already submitted it once. Surprise, surprise, they didn't pay. Don't know why. Once I go through the steps to resubmit this claim, it's not done. And the reason why it's not done is because if the insurance doesn't pay, they're okay with that. If they drop the ball on their part, I get the consequence. They're fine if they drop the ball and I don't get paid. I don't want to forget this. I don't want to have the consequence based on somebody else dropping the ball, but I also don't want this on my list all the time because it's kind of overwhelming to look at that. So how I handle a boomerang task like this is it's going to be on my list of things to do until I do this resubmission. Once I do the resubmission, this is what works for me. I am going to put on my calendar when I expect to hear back from the insurance company. I know they're not going to be getting back to me within a month, so I'm going to say maybe 6 weeks. So I will make that an appointment. That boomerang task is an appointment now on my calendar so I don't forget it, but I don't have to visually sort through that every week while I'm planning because that's frustrating. So you're going to use this dump list along with whatever system you use to keep track of your dates. Maybe it's digital, maybe it's a wall calendar, maybe it's something paper, it doesn't matter. You use these things together to kind of manage overwhelm and keep track of things. I want to talk a little bit about things on this list and ways you can think of them, right? One of the ways we think of them is steps. When I was talking about taxes, I broke out steps. What are some things that I would have to do, actions I have to take? That's one way to look at it. Another way to limit it, like I mentioned, was time. I can say I'm only going to work on this thing for a set amount of time, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Another way to think about things on this list is how much emotional or even physical energy they require of you. And thinking about that when you're plugging them in the week. I know for me, this insurance issue is just really frustrating for me. And so I don't need to put that task on a day that's already tight and chaotic and I'm already feeling a little dysregulated. It's not going to go well. So even thinking about that when you're looking at this dump list, these things to do, what things carry like a big emotional charge for you or frustration? You're likely to be frustrated and getting a little more strategic about where you plug those in the week and giving yourself a little bit more of a fighting chance to be able to hang with those things. So a lot of times we put something on this list and we still need more information, right? We might not know what we need to know to plug it in. So an example on that is complete soccer form, the form for my son's soccer tryouts. I know it's important. I know there's a consequence here. If we miss that, he doesn't get to be on the team. He doesn't get a chance of playing. But I also don't know when it's due. I know soccer starts sometime, I don't know, soon-ish, right? So I've got another step here that I need before I can even plug this in. So if I look at something like that, I'm like, I don't know when it is. I'm going to take some time to go and find that and plug it in. I had to do that with a couple of things, right? I had to do that with my returns. I had to do that with a soccer form. I had to do that with something else. You can see here, you need a little time sometimes, even just formulating this list, this dump list. The first step is like, just get it all out there on paper or on a file, right? But the next step is fine tuning this a little bit so you have more information to be able to use it, to be able to plug it into the week. And then once you have it in the week, plug it into those days. So this last step is the revising, the maintenance of using this. We're going to take the things that didn't get done and they're going to go back. Maybe they get done the weekend, right? Maybe they're going to slide over here the weekend, but if not, they're going to go back to the list. And that part's really important. You have that flexibility to know, okay, I have a path forward if this didn't happen because life is life. It slides. Emergencies come up, non-emergencies come up. You're not a robot. You're not going to be able to execute this perfectly every week. That's not even reasonable or and it's not normal life. You need something that is flexible and you need to be flexible with yourself to use this. So I've heard this someone talk about how when you're doing life, when you're adulting, it's like you're juggling, always juggling. But some of those things are glass balls, some of those are plastic balls. Using a system like this helps us make sure we're not dropping what is a glass ball for us. That's different for different people. Usually there's an outcome we're not okay with. And so you'll drop some plastic balls. There'll be some things that don't happen that go back on your list and that it is okay. It's okay. That's life. That's normal. Using a tool like this that gives you some of that flexibility can help. I mentioned this before in other videos, but I really want to mention this again. There's no magic in this specific tool. There's no magic in any certain planner. You might even use this for a while and get tired of it, be like, I'm bored of this, and that's fine. You can switch it up. You want to have the same components. You want something that is functioning as your dump list. You want some way to prioritize and funnel things down, but it doesn't need to be this necessarily. The biggest thing to remember is it does not matter how fantastic or not fantastic a tool is, it's not going to work if you don't have time set aside to use it. So even though can be a really helpful tool, you may need to work on a habit on how to start using and implementing it. At the very least, you need some time. You need some time every week to plan for the upcoming week using a system like this. We are trying to collect everything so we can remember it. Then we're trying to organize it in a way that doesn't overwhelm us. With ADHD, it is very hard sometimes to filter out important information, not so important information. So what's a challenge is if you take a whole week in view for a lot of us and try to look at this and plan your week and operate every day and look at this big week. So what works for someone like me is I have a dump list of all the things I have to keep track of. Then the things I'm going to do that week move to that week in this little space right here, just this week. And then I plug those things into where they go in the week, which day they go in the week. That means on Monday, I'm only looking at this on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm only looking at this. That helps me stay focused, not be as overwhelmed, not shut down as easily. Because looking at a whole week when you can't filter out your attention easily, when you can't prioritize easily or sequence easily, is a lot of extra work. So allowing yourself to shrink that down and put on literal, metaphorical blinders so you can just look at what's in front of you can be really helpful in managing overwhelm and getting things done. Sure, you'll miss things. We all do. We're human. But you're going to have a safety net by using a tool like this so you're not dropping all the glass balls. That is it for today on how to use this dump list weekly planner. You can download your free copy below to be able to use this yourself. Good luck with using it, tweak it, find a way to make it your own, but hopefully this can help you with keeping track of some of your too many things to do list and also managing overwhelm. And so if that's it, make sure to download that sheet if you are interested, and I will see you next time.